Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Has anyone ever noticed in the Half-Blood Prince book and the movie that Voldemort's cave contained hundreds upon hundreds of Inferi? Nobody is a stranger to the Inferi's attack on Harry and Dumbledore when the duo were trying to retrieve the Locket Horcrux. I actually love the whole idea of the Inferi being the security for the Horcrux, but I couldn't stop wondering how Voldemort actually got them all there. How many people did the Dark Lord really kill, and how often did he visit the cave? Because from my original understanding, he was the one that had to physically transform the dead person into an Inferi himself, or did he? I'll get to that a little later on. I'm going to answer all of those questions today, but the biggest one I have personally is why he created so many Inferi only to place them all in a cave. I honestly do not get it, but with that being said, I've come up with what I believe to be a valid reason as to why he created them, and I'll tie the rest of the questions in with one long informative video. Guys, before we start, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark offer you an incredibly powerful VPN to protect your internet privacy. In today's computer age, hackers are constantly trying to gain access to your bank account details, your social media passwords, and access to your personal information, amongst many other things. This can all be prevented when browsing under Surfshark's protection. Not only does it protect your privacy, it also offers you a lot more. Different countries have different viewing restrictions on what content can be viewed. Therefore, by logging into a VPN based in another country, you can gain access to that content that may be blocked in the country that you live in. For those of you who've always wanted to watch the full 8 Harry Potter movies on Netflix, but haven't been able to in your own country, you can simply select Turkey on your Surfshark VPN location and have full access to every single one of them. It's that simple. If you join Surfshark today, you will get 85% off, 3 extra months for free. You'll also be able to use Surfshark on as many devices as you like. There's no limits. And finally, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Basically, if you're not happy, if you're not satisfied, then your money will be returned. It's a no-brainer, guys. So sign up to Surfshark right now by clicking the link in the description below. So let's take a look at the Inferi in general for a moment. From my knowledge of the subject within the world of Harry Potter, the skill needed to create Inferi was lost for centuries and was spoken about as nothing more than a myth. A dark myth at that, and it would be heavily frowned upon to see anyone even discuss wanting to raise the dead or reanimate corpses as Inferi. Gellert Grindelwald mistakenly believed he could use the Resurrection Stone to create an army of Inferi, something he was way off in with those assumptions. However, Tom Marvolo Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort, whatever name he was using at the time, probably Voldemort, managed to unlock the age-old power of reanimating the dead, something I'm sure many have tried and failed to do. To be honest, I know his biggest feat of creating a Horcrux and flying without a broom are some of the most impressive forms of magic, but being able to create more than one Inferi and have it act at your beck and call really is pushing the boundaries of magic far beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Yes, the acts were pretty dark, but as Garrick Ollivander once said, they were great. The level of magic executed was great. So my belief is that Voldemort created these Inferi because he wanted to create an undefeatable army. He was gathering followers but not at the rate he wanted, which is why he also attempted to recruit the giants, the werewolves and other misunderstood, mistreated creatures of the forest. I think that anyone that Voldemort recruited would serve him as mere mortals. If they were successful, then great, they could keep fighting for him. However, if they died, then they would be turned into an Inferi, where they would wait to be called to fight amongst the Dark Lord's forces. Now, if we look at an Inferi in general, it has a lot of strengths and minimal weaknesses. It doesn't have any real free will. It's a dead person that has its limbs magically animated to do whatever it was told to do. It didn't matter if it has flesh or not, if it had eyes or not, it was more bone. No matter what attack you launch at it, it will take no damage and just get back to its feet. Cut off its legs, it will crawl towards you and still try to harm you. Inferi are also freakishly strong, and once they have you in their grasp, it is near impossible to escape. Even the strongest physical knock to the creature will not stop it from continuing its assault. Its only weakness is of course fire, as we've seen Dumbledore effectively use in the Half-Blood Prince, and that just seems to keep them at bay. A burned Inferi can still be reanimated to walk again. The Dark Lord obviously knew it will also take time to build up his army of the dead, so it could be an added incentive for him and his followers to kill without thinking, as these individuals can just be added to the ranks. If I'm entirely honest, I think the Inferi were supposed to be used in the Battle of Hogwarts, but J.K. Rowling just forgot about them, so unfortunately the Inferi had no closing storyline, which is a little disappointing. However, I'm not going to remain disappointed. I want to give them a bit of closure myself. If I'm in Voldemort's mindset, I'm thinking that the Inferi are a last resort, a failsafe to overwhelm the Dark Lord's opponents if needed, but the thing is, he didn't need them. The Death Eaters were actually winning the battle. The only reason Harry won was because of all of Voldemort's Horcruxes were destroyed, and then he was defeated. Otherwise, he was on the verge of winning, so he is never in the required position to call the Inferi or summon them. So, if he wasn't going to use them as part of his army until they were genuinely needed, he had to put them somewhere, while incorporating a solution that could see more Inferi made without the Dark Lord doing so. So therefore he places them in a cave as the main security measure around the safeguarding of the Locket Horcrux. There is hundreds of Inferi in the cave by the time Regulus Black got there, never mind Harry and Dumbledore. The Inferi work as a hive mind, meaning there's one alpha that's under Voldemort's spell and the others are just drones that are linked to it. That's how I believe it works anyway. I think new Inferi are added every time someone enters the cave, but as you can imagine, there's not that many. Regulus Black would be the best known victim. It's chilling to actually think that he may have been part of the Inferi that attacked Harry and Dumbledore in the cave several years later. Personally, I think the lake is infused with dark magic and that it's the surrounding tainted lake water that sits in the bowl and not a potion of Voldemort's creation. This water, when drank, acts as a signal, like a beacon for the Inferi to identify their target. I also believe from the following passage that the body of the person that has been killed, when full with the lake water, will then become reanimated itself due to the magical influence already placed in the lake by Voldemort. Take a look at this passage from the Half-Blood Prince. But though gashes appeared in their sodden rags and their icy skin, they had no blood to spill. They walked on, unfeeling, their shrunken hands outstretched towards him, and as he backed away still farther, he felt arms enclose him from behind, thin, fleshless arms cold as death, and his feet left the ground as they lifted him and began to carry him, slowly and surely, back to the water, and he knew there would be no release, that he would be drowned, and become one more dead guardian of a fragment of Voldemort's shattered soul. So to fully answer the question as to how he got so many there, well, I firmly believe it was done over time. Every single person he killed was turned into an Inferi and placed in the cave. Sure, why else did people go missing and never be found? And my final chilling thought on this whole matter is this. If Voldemort had somehow managed to survive his encounter with the infant Harry Potter on that fateful night in Godric's Hollow, he would have turned James and Lily Potter into Inferi, sent them to the cave, and Harry could have been attacked by his very own parents when trying to retrieve the Locket of Slytherin so many years later. That is definitely something to think about. With that being said, guys, that is my video on how Voldemort got so many Inferi into the cave. As usual, leave your comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the very next video.